Have you ever just stopped and wondered why you act the way you do in relationships? Well, it turns out the patterns we learn as kids can totally shape our adult connections, and usually in ways we don't even realize. Today, we're going to unpack this idea of love styles and try to understand that connection a little better. So let me just ask you this right off the bat. Do you find yourself pushing people away, like the second they start getting close? Or are you the exact opposite, to kind of cling to them for dear life? Now, these aren't just random personality quirks. They're actually clues to a much deeper pattern, one that probably started a long, long time ago. So this whole idea comes from some amazing research by Milan and Kay Yerkovich. They actually identified 5 core love styles. Now, they're all super interesting, but today we're going to focus on 3 of the most common ones. And what they mean by a love style is basically a predictable pattern in how we relate to people that, you guessed it, often ties directly back to what we went through as kids. Okay, so let's kick things off with our first style. It's a really common one, and the Yerkoviches call it the avoider. I mean, the name itself gives you a pretty big hint about what's going on here, right? The story of the avoider usually starts in a childhood home where affection and emotional connection were kind of scarce. Just imagine a little kid reaching out for their parent. Maybe they need a hug or just some comfort, but that parent consistently turns away. The message that kid learns deep down is, okay, my needs for closeness are not going to be met here. So then what happens? That child grows into an adult who truly believes that being independent is way safer than being intimate. So when a partner tries to get close, that old childhood alarm bell starts ringing, and their first instinct is to pull back. For an avoider, space isn't just something they like, it feels like a survival need. All right, moving on to our next style. This one is called the pleaser. And for this person, their core motivation is all built around a very deep-seated fear. The pleaser often grows up with a parent who's really critical, or maybe unpredictable and angry. So as a kid, you learn super fast that your main job is to keep everyone happy and calm. You essentially become a little emotional manager, always trying to cheer people up and just keep the peace at all costs. And as an adult, well, that childhood job turns into a powerful fear of conflict. Pleasers will do almost anything to avoid a fight. They'll give in even when they really don't want to, just bowing to what their partner wants. Because the anxiety of having someone upset with them is it's too much to handle. Now for our third style, which is often forged in a much more chaotic environment. This is the victim, and this love style is all about a pattern of passivity. The victim's story usually starts in a home that's filled with chaos. Maybe the parents were fighting all the time, really loudly. In that kind of environment, a child learns that the absolute safest thing you can do is just not be noticed. You make yourself small, you become invisible, so you don't get caught in the crossfire. And that survival strategy, it gets carried right into adulthood. So when a victim is confronted or finds themselves in a conflict, their go-to response is to become quiet and compliant. They just shut down, basically repeating that childhood pattern of trying to be invisible until the storm blows over. So we've met the avoider, the pleaser, and the victim. Each one has a really clear origin story, right? But when we put them all together, the patterns become even more obvious. Seeing it laid out like this really just makes it click. You can see the direct line, the cause and effect. A basic childhood need, whether it's for affection, for peace, or for safety, goes unmet. That forces a kid to create a very specific coping strategy. And that strategy, it just becomes an automatic, unconscious pattern in their adult relationships. So there they are, the avoider, the pleaser, and the victim. You can think of them as these powerful, invisible scripts that can end up running the show in how we love. And listen, this right here is the most important takeaway from all of this. These styles are not character flaws. They aren't who you are. They're actually brilliant survival strategies that your younger self came up with to get through a really tough situation. They helped you survive back then, but they might not be helping you thrive right now. And that's where the real power is. Just understanding your pattern, that's the first huge step to changing it. Once you recognize that your love style is just an old story, you get to ask yourself the most important question of all. Are you ready to write a new chapter?